Someone interesting, they did ask me what my favourite sort of childhood memory was about playing sport.
3:17 in the morning, and a headline lights up a million screens at once. Prince William and Catherine confirm tragic news about King Charles. 6 words stacked over a photograph of the king looking thinner than anyone remembers seeing him. Phones buzz on nightstands across London, New York and Toronto. A commuter on the Underground grips the handrail tighter. A woman in a Chicago kitchen sets her coffee down without drinking it. Nobody asks if the headline is true. Not yet. They just share it. By sunrise, it has travelled further than any palace statement ever could. Hi viewers, question before we go any further. When a headline like that lands on your phone at 3 a.m, do you click it right away? Or do you wait to see if it's real? Drop your answer in the comments. Because here is the part almost nobody checks. No statement has come from Kensington Palace. No statement has come from Clarence House. William and Catherine have not confirmed tragic news about anything in the last 24 hours. What actually exists is a king who has been living with cancer since February 2024, a Prince of Wales stepping into more public weight than he has ever carried, and a rumour machine that moves faster than either of them can control. That gap between what people believe happened and what has actually happened is where this story lives. Look closer at the photograph used in that headline. It is 2 years old, pulled from an archive, sold as breaking news. This happens constantly with royal health stories, and it works because the fear underneath it is real, even when the headline is not. Charles is 77. He still sits on the throne. He still receives his red boxes every day. He still meets prime ministers, ambassadors, and heads of state. But everyone around him, from Buckingham Palace to the Cabinet Office, knows the same uncomfortable truth. A sitting monarch is managing his health in public, in real time, while the man next in line has to prepare for a job he cannot rehearse and does not want to need yet. William did not choose this timeline. Neither did Catherine. Both are now living inside a version of royal life that has never existed quite this way before. Heir and heir's wife, visibly ready, while the king they are ready to succeed is still very much doing the job. The public thinks this story is about Charles's health. It is actually about something the palace has never had to manage quite like this. What happens when a modern monarchy has to look prepared for a future it refuses to admit is coming?
She's an inspirational woman to look up to, obviously on to this day, and going forward and things. It is, it's a wonderful family. The members who I've met have achieved a lot, and very inspirational.
The king sits under studio lights at Clarence House, hands folded, and says the sentence nobody expected. His cancer treatment is being scaled back in 2026. Fewer sessions. A step, his own words, into what palace aides are calling a precautionary phase. He calls it a personal blessing. He does not call it remission. Buckingham Palace will not use that word either. What they do confirm is that he has responded exceptionally well. That single broadcast, recorded for the Stand Up to Cancer campaign in December 2025, tells you how this king communicates a crisis. Slowly, carefully, on his own terms. Rewind 2 years. September 2022, Queen Elizabeth II dies at Balmoral after 70 years on the throne, and Charles becomes king at 73, the oldest monarch in British history. 16 months later, in February 2024, Buckingham Palace announces he has cancer, discovered during treatment for a separate, benign prostate condition. The type is never disclosed. The stage is never disclosed. He steps back from public duties for a matter of weeks, then returns by Easter, determined not to let illness define a reign that had barely started. By September 2025, he is well enough to host a state visit for the President of the United States. Full ceremonial wait, hours on his feet. The palace wants that image remembered. A working king, not a fragile one. Royal health has always been handled this way. Vague on medical detail, precise on tone. The institution learned that lesson decades ago, and it has never unlearned it. Now look at who stands beside him. William, Prince of Wales, 44 years old, second in line no longer, first in line now. Catherine, Princess of Wales, managing her own recovery from cancer while raising 3 children largely out of the public eye. Between them, They represent something the palace needs right now. Proof that the monarchy has a future, even while its present is complicated. The public sees photographs, a hospital visit, a wave from a car window, a birthday video shot in a garden. The institution sees something else entirely. Continuity planning, built one public appearance at a time, without ever using the word succession out loud. Because that is the quiet rule nobody says on camera. William cannot simply be visible. He has to be visible in exactly the right amount, at exactly the right moments, without ever looking like he is standing in his father's spot before his father has left it. That balance is harder than it looks. How do you prepare to lead an institution while the man you love is still leading it, still fighting for his health, and still very much your king? Most days, King Charles works through his red box before dinner. State papers, Foreign Office briefings, documents that need his signature before government business can move forward. But treatment days are different. On treatment days, the box waits, and government waits with it. That fact opens a door most people never think to walk through. What actually happens, constitutionally, when a king cannot function for a few hours, a few days, or longer? The answer has nothing to do with William becoming king early. It has everything to do with a piece of legislation most Britons have never read. The Regency Act of 1937, updated over the decades, most recently through the Councillors of State Act of 2022. Here is what it allows. If a monarch becomes permanently incapacitated, confirmed by a formal declaration involving the Lord Chancellor and senior medical opinion, a regent takes over full royal function. That has not happened. Nobody in government has suggested it is close. Charles remains sovereign in every legal sense. The last regency actually invoked was for George III in 1811, when his son ruled as Prince Regent for 9 years. Nothing close has happened since. What has happened is smaller and more common. Councillors of State, a separate and much less dramatic mechanism, step in for routine business when the monarch is unavailable or abroad. Under the 2022 Act, that pool now includes not just the spouse and the next 4 adults in line of succession, but also Anne, Princess Royal, and Prince Edward, Duke of Edinburgh, added specifically because 2 people ahead of them in that original line, Prince Harry and Prince Andrew, no longer perform royal duties. Councillors of State cannot create new peers. They cannot dissolve Parliament. They exercise limited, delegated authority, and only when instructed to. So when William appears at an engagement his father was scheduled to attend, that is not a transfer of the crown. It is a very old system doing exactly what it was built to do. But try explaining that to a comment section at midnight. William understands the mechanics better than almost anyone alive. What he cannot fully prepare for is the emotional weight sitting underneath them. He is not simply a prince learning statutes. He is a son watching his father manage a disease in front of the entire world, required to look composed while doing it, because composure itself has become part of the job. Royal commentators have long noted that William's public manner has shifted since 2024, described by some as steadier, by others as more guarded. Neither reading is confirmed by the palace. Both exist because people are watching him for signs of something he has never said out loud. The legal question was always going to be answerable. Statutes are statutes. The harder question follows William into every room he walks into now, whether he says a single word or not. How do you prepare to carry something without ever appearing to reach for it? Early, a garden at Windsor, soft afternoon light. Catherine sits alone on a bench and speaks directly into a camera. And within minutes, the video is the only thing anyone in Britain is talking about. She tells the country what only her closest family knew. Surgery in January. Tests afterward that found something no one wanted to find. A course of preventative chemotherapy, already underway by the time viewers see her face. She never names the type. She never will. That detail stays hers alone. March 2024. The Princess of Wales, 42 years old, announcing a cancer diagnosis to millions of strangers because the alternative, silence, had already produced months of wild public speculation about where she was, why nobody had photographed her, and why Kensington Palace kept declining to explain. The video runs under 3 minutes. Its impact runs for years. By September that year, she confirmed she has finished chemotherapy. By January 14, 2025, she posts again, this time from the Royal Marsden Hospital, the place that treated her, saying she is now in remission and still focused on recovery. William stands beside her. The two of them become joint patrons of the hospital that same day.
There's no pressure though, because like Kate said, it's about carving your own future. No one's going to try and, no one's trying to fill my mother's shoes, and what she did is fantastic. It's about making your own future and your own destiny, and Kate will do a very good job of that.
This is a life,
From there, the return is gradual, then less gradual. Trooping the colour in June 2025, Catherine on the balcony with her children. A steady run of public engagements through the back half of the year. On January 8, 2026, she and William visit Charing Cross Hospital together to thank NHS staff, their first joint appearance of the new year. The next day, her 44th birthday, she releases the final chapter of a video series she calls Mother Nature, this one titled Winter, filmed alone, reflective, no interviews attached to it. Royal commentators have pointed out that Catherine's public rhythm now carries two messages at once, whether she intends it that way or not. One message is personal, a woman who survived something serious and kept living her life. The other is institutional, proof, delivered one appearance at a time, that the family meant to carry the monarchy forward is actually able to do it. Nobody at the palace has said that second part out loud. Nobody needs to. The cameras do it for them. What nobody outside that family actually knows is which message matters more to the people living it. So the question royal watchers keep circling back to isn't really about Catherine's health anymore. It's about what her recovery is quietly being asked to prove. Was this simply a family that faced illness and came through it? Or was it also, without anyone announcing it, a monarchy proving to itself that it still has a future worth waiting for? Watch Camilla at any public engagement closely enough, and you notice something the cameras rarely comment on. A hand at Charles's elbow, a half step ahead to check the route, a quiet word before he reaches a crowd that has been waiting for hours in the cold. None of it makes headlines. All of it is happening anyway. This has been the pattern since his 2024 diagnosis. Camilla became queen the moment Charles became king in September 2022, and the title stuck without the controversy many expected when it was first floated years earlier. Since his diagnosis, her public role has shifted again, from consort to something closer to gatekeeper. Reports from royal correspondents describe her managing his pace, protecting his energy, deciding which engagements are worth the physical cost, and which can wait. None of that is confirmed by any official palace statement, and it should be treated as informed reporting rather than fact. But the pattern is visible enough that royal commentators keep returning to it. Here is where the story gets messier, because it always does. Tabloids on both sides of the Atlantic have run pieces for years, suggesting friction between Camilla's household and Catherine's. Two courts operating under one roof, competing for influence over how the family is presented to the public. Some commentators have suggested Camilla's team prioritizes protecting the king's image above all else. Others have suggested Catherine's team resents being treated as a junior operation. There is no public evidence confirming a personal feud between the two women. Not one document, not one on-record quote from either household. What exists is speculation, repeated often enough by enough outlets that it has started to feel like fact to people who never checked the sourcing. Strip away the tabloid framing, and something more interesting is left standing. Camilla represents the monarchy as it exists today, steady, present, holding a king's schedule together while he manages a disease in public. Catherine represents the monarchy as it is being built for tomorrow, a future queen consort still finding her footing after her own diagnosis. Institutionally, the palace needs both women functioning at full strength, at the exact same time, for entirely different reasons. That is not rivalry, that is architecture. Two roles the crown cannot currently survive without. But rivalry sells more headlines than architecture does, and the palace knows it. There was already one moment in recent royal history that showed exactly how fast public trust can turn when a family crisis meets a hungry news cycle. It did not involve Camilla. It did not involve Catherine. It involved Prince Andrew, and the lesson from that crisis is still shaping every decision the palace makes today. October 30th, 2025. A short statement leaves Buckingham Palace, and by evening, it has rewritten a family tree. Prince Andrew is no longer a prince. Buckingham Palace confirms he will now be known as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, stripped of the style Royal Highness by letters patent dated November 3rd, 2025. His lease on Royal Lodge, the Windsor Great Park home he has occupied for 2 decades, is formally surrendered. He moves to private accommodation on the Sandringham estate, funded personally by the King. The trigger is not a single incident. It is the accumulated weight of 15 years tied to Jeffrey Epstein, reignited that October by the posthumous memoir of Virginia Giuffre, who wrote that she was trafficked to Andrew as a minor. Andrew has denied the allegations throughout. He denied them again as the walls closed in. The palace statement calls the measures necessary censures, notwithstanding the fact that he continues to deny the allegations against him. 2 weeks earlier, Andrew had already announced he would stop using the Duke of York title voluntarily. It did nothing to slow the story down. The Times published his Royal Lodge lease that same week. £1 million paid up front in 2003, a further £7.5 million in refurbishments, and after that, only a token rent, charged whenever the Crown Estate cared to ask for it. Public anger over that arrangement did as much damage as the Epstein connection itself. What Charles could remove, he removed. What he could not remove, by law, stayed exactly where it was. Andrew's place in the line of succession requires an Act of Parliament, and worse, consent from Commonwealth nations, a process too slow and too politically costly for any government eager to move past the story. He remains 8th in line, a title with no public function left attached to it. This is the part few outside constitutional law circles understood before that October. A monarch can strip access, funding, and honor from a family member almost overnight. A monarch cannot strip blood. The line of succession is written in relation, not reputation, and reputation is the only thing the palace was ever able to touch. Royal historians point to one precedent, and only one, in the last century. Charles Edward, a grandson of Queen Victoria, lost his British title in 1917 for fighting for Germany in the First World War, under a specific Act of Parliament passed for that purpose. Nothing comparable has happened since. Until Andrew. The family did what it could through letters patent and royal warrant. It could not do the one thing many wanted, and that gap between what the King has the power to punish and what the law allows him to erase is the same gap the institution now has to manage every single day. This story stays in the news. A headline crosses a phone screen at 3 in the morning. It claims something has been confirmed. No palace source is named. No statement exists to check it against. By the time anyone thinks to look for one, the headline has already been shared 400,000 times. This is not hypothetical. It is the operating environment the British royal family now lives inside, and it did not exist in this form even 10 years ago. Consider what actually happened with King Charles's cancer diagnosis. Buckingham Palace announced it on February 5, 2024, in a single, carefully worded statement. A separate issue of concern noted during treatment for an unrelated condition, followed by tests that identified a form of cancer. The palace has never named the type. It has never disclosed the stage. 2 years later, in December 2025, Charles delivered his own update directly to camera, saying his treatment could be reduced in the new year, calling it a personal blessing while stopping carefully short of the word remission. That is the entire record. 2 statements, roughly 2 years apart, both cautious, both incomplete by design. Into that gap, speculation grows the way it always does when an institution says less than the public wants to know. Tabloids on both sides of the Atlantic have run competing theories about the severity of the King's condition for 2 years running. None of them carry a named medical source. Royal commentators have suggested the palace's silence on specifics is a deliberate strategy, protecting the King's dignity and the institution's stability at the same time. Others argue the silence itself fuels worse rumors than the truth would. Both readings are plausible. Neither is confirmed. What is confirmed is simpler and less dramatic than either version. The palace discloses that something is happening. It does not disclose details it considers private. That has been the pattern since Elizabeth II's death, and it held through Catherine's own 2024 diagnosis, revealed in her own words, on her own timeline, with the specific cancer type never named there either. The institution's actual vulnerability was never a secret. It is not medical detail leaking out. It is the space between an official statement and public patience for one, a space now filled within minutes by anyone with a phone and an audience. William understands this better than his advisors sometimes do. Every appearance he makes on his father's behalf gets read as a signal, whether he intends one or not. A cancelled engagement becomes evidence. A rescheduled one becomes a theory. He has learned to move as if every gesture will be interpreted twice, once by the people in the room, and once by people who were never told what actually happened. William stands at the dispatch box position in the House of Lords chamber, delivering remarks his father would once have delivered himself. No coronation preceded this moment. No regency was declared to require it. It happened because it was allowed to happen, quietly, inside a legal structure built almost a century ago. The mechanism is the Regency Act, 1937, amended in 2022 specifically to widen who can stand in for a working monarch. Charles requested that expansion himself in a formal message to Parliament in November 2022, asking that his sister Anne and his brother Edward be restored as councillors of state. The reasoning was practical. The existing pool, built around the next four in line to the throne, now included Harry, who had stepped back from royal duties, and Andrew, whose position had already become a liability years before his titles were removed. Parliament passed the Councillors of State Act within weeks. It received royal assent on December 6, 2022. The result? When Charles cannot personally handle routine state business, Camilla, William, Anne, or Edward can act in his place. They cannot appoint a prime minister. They cannot create peers. They can sign documents, receive ambassadors, and keep the machinery of government moving without delay. None of that requires the public to be told anything happened at all. This is why William's role has expanded so steadily since 2024, without a single formal announcement marking the shift. He has taken on investitures his father once handled personally. He has represented the crown at state occasions Charles found physically demanding during active treatment. Constitutional scholars have floated the term soft regency to describe this pattern, borrowing the description from Charles's own years as Prince of Wales, when he quietly absorbed ceremonial duties from an aging Elizabeth II long before he became king. It is informed analysis, not palace language. No one at Buckingham Palace has used that phrase publicly. The distinction matters more than it sounds like it should. A regency is a legal declaration, requiring 5 separate officials to certify incapacity, triggering a fixed transfer of formal power. What William is doing is neither declared nor triggered. It is absorbed, one engagement at a time, inside a system explicitly built to allow exactly that kind of quiet redistribution, without ever forcing the country to confront what it might mean. The king remains sovereign in every legal sense that matters. His son now performs an increasing share of the job in full public view, and the country has largely stopped asking when that arrangement might change, because nobody, inside the palace or outside it, has offered a date. Catherine steps out of the car at Charing Cross Hospital on January 8, 2026, and the staff waiting for her know exactly what this visit is. William is beside her. It is their first joint public engagement of the year, arranged specifically to thank the NHS teams who treated them both. Neither of them says the word survivor out loud. They do not need to. Go back to March 2024, to a garden at Windsor, and a video that ran under 3 minutes. Catherine told the country herself. Surgery in January, then a diagnosis nobody wanted, then preventative chemotherapy already underway by the time anyone watching found out. She never named the cancer type. She has never named it since.
Bigger than that, this isn't just about happy, healthy children. This is about the society I hope we could and can become. Right from the early days, meeting lots of people who are suffering with.
By September that year, she confirmed she had finished chemotherapy. By January 2025, she announced remission from the same hospital she and William now support as joint patrons. Weigh that timeline against Charles's own. Diagnosed February 2024, 1 month after his daughter-in-law's surgery. 2 members of the same family managing 2 separate cancer treatments inside the same 12-month window, while one of them was also learning to be king and the other was learning to be his heir's wife in front of a global audience that had already decided it knew everything about her before she said a word herself. There is no statement from either of them describing what that year actually felt like inside the walls of Windsor or Adelaide Cottage. There does not need to be. The public record supplies enough. A king attending a state visit for the American president 5 months after his own hospitalization for chemotherapy side effects. A Princess of Wales returning to Trooping the Colour with her children 18 months after her own diagnosis, smiling for a camera that had spent a year deciding she was hiding something worse. Royal commentators have noted, and it is a fair observation rather than a confirmed fact, that every public appearance either of them makes now carries two audiences at once. One audience wants to see two people who survived something serious. The other, whether it means to or not, is quietly checking for proof that the institution itself has a future worth trusting. Nobody in that family asked to carry both messages in the same wave from a car window. They are carrying them anyway, and they have been doing it since before most of the public even knew there was a story to watch. 2 years on from a February morning, when Buckingham Palace confirmed a king had cancer, the throne has not changed hands. No regency has been declared. No date has been set for anything. What has changed is quieter, and in some ways harder to measure. William now performs a share of the job his father built over 7 decades as heir. Absorbed gradually through a legal framework Charles himself asked Parliament to widen in 2022. Catherine has become, without ever choosing the role publicly, proof that recovery and duty can exist in the same photograph. Camilla has spent 2 years managing a king's pace without ever being asked to explain that she is doing it. Anne and Edward carry a share of formal business that once belonged to a much larger working family. A family now smaller by one name, after Andrew Mountbatten Windsor lost the last of what a title like Prince ever gave him.
The new Diana.
Well, I mean, she'd be very keen to avoid that comparison.
None of this was announced as a plan. It arrived the way most institutional change arrives inside a monarchy built on continuity rather than moments. One engagement, one statement, one letters patent at a time, until the shape of the thing has changed and nobody can point to the single day it happened. The king remains sovereign. That fact has not moved once through any of it. What has moved is the public's patience for uncertainty, tested by 2 years of statements that say only as much as the family decides the country needs to know, and filled in the gaps by everyone else, with theories that move faster than any palace statement ever could. The institution's actual test was never Charles's diagnosis, or Andrew's disgrace, or Catherine's recovery, taken alone. It was whether a family built on centuries of formality could keep functioning while living 3 different crises in full public view at the same time, without ever fully explaining any of them. 2 years in, it still is.